Good evening, good morning on this New Year's Eve. We're back with review of night 3 of 4 of the Phish run, night 3 of final night for me. I'll share my thoughts on the run after I review the show, but I love this band. I don't know how else to summarize it for everybody. Um, Made the trek to the Garden again tonight. Rolled in about a half hour before showtime. Had the great honor and privilege of going in with one of my best friends, John, who actually, this was his 30th anniversary of the first time he saw Phish at MSG. So he's going way back to 1995, which is also a really entertaining, fun perspective to get from him. All the different eras and iterations he's seen throughout the years. Obviously, different from my experience, me coming in a little bit later than he did, hearing those shows, but not really experiencing them the way he has. Forever grateful for these runs. I can't describe what this band does live and the chances they take and the energy that they bring every single night that I've ever seen them. I mean, even their off nights better than most acts' best night, in my opinion. And I've seen a lot of shows in my time. They came out swinging again, and then, typically, like, to recap the first night, sometimes they kind of glide into things. Second night they might pick up the energy, but the first 2 nights they came out with a punch. Tonight they came out with a punch as well. They opened up with Chalk Dust Torture, which is just a great crowd participation tune. Some key lyrics that the crowd kind of gets into and shouts along with the band, which is always great. And they roll right into Moma Dance, which is typically maybe like a slot 3 or 4 song, but they snuck it in the second slot. And it gives them kind of an opportunity to get into the funk a little bit and slide into the pocket. Really cool version. Always welcome. One of my favorite tunes. I'm never disappointed to get it. I usually get it every run. They play it every 4 or 5 shows. And it's always a crowd pleaser. And then they go right back into Chalk Dust, which is always great. And Trey had a little boogie in the end of that close. He also had a little boogie in the first version of Chalk Dust, which they opened with, and he was really feeling himself, which I'll get into as well. He's just been on another level. I almost felt like, and not in a negative way to say this, but like the band wasn't really keeping up with him, or maybe he was forging through. And him and Paige seemed to be really connected tonight, kind of complimenting each other on some jams and some licks, which was fun to see. Then they get into Back on the Train, which this is one of my favorite tunes for Trey to kind of cut loose on. He gets into this boogie. For those that don't listen to Phish, this is a fun, jumpy song to kind of expose yourself to. Even the studio version is just get a good flavor of what that tune's about. So Trey put the boogie on later in the song, and then they come right back with Axilla Part 2. I mean, they just ripped it, and the crowd goes berserk. It's a heavier, straightforward rock song that they can tend to get spacey and jam on. In the jam at the end of Axilla, the whole guard just went black. They turned off the lights, and the band was just kind of getting into this little psychedelic groove, which was pretty sweet. Then they bring it up into Divided Sky. This is a cool placement. One of the cooler places I've seen, right smack in the middle of set 1. It's an epic composition. It seems like it's a jam if you've never heard it, but it's really an orchestrated piece from early in their catalog. And there's this cool moment live where Trey does this pause and he just kind of reflects to the crowd, and the crowd just gets amped. I mean, it was so loud, the screaming. Your eardrums are almost crackling from the crowd's excitement, and they're kind of egging Trey on, and then he comes in with this beautiful note, and Fishman comes in on the drums, and it's just nice, melodic, beautiful tune. They've rolled right into Blaze On. Again, kind of sneaking these newer, I keep on saying newer, these aren't newer songs, but these later catalog songs kind of, 2/3 through the first set. They didn't really stretch it out too much. Nice sing-along for the crowd. It's got some cool lyrics about getting in trouble, which, Trey always chuckles at when he sings about giving his past. So it was a nice, I guess it was a break after Divided Sky in a way. And then they roll right into 3 old school just stompers. I mean, they go right into tube, which they didn't jam on. They did the typical tube arrangement, but it's got so many dynamic shifts in it, from being like a funk, almost, disco Afro beat tune at the beginning, rolling right into to like kind of a blues lick, almonds esque to a certain extent, then right back into the funk. Really fun lyrics, upbeat, and then they roll right into Reba, which is just majestic. Trey's second half of that tune, when Trey gets on his jazz licks on that tune, it's just mesmerizing. So obviously, it's one of the Stone Cold classics, off their earlier records, that has just been a staple for so many years. Some versions better than others. There was no whistling at the end of this one. They kind of cut it short, and then they went right into Split Open and Melt. Now, this as a set closer is always welcome, and they got really psychedelic at the end of it, really stretching out, kind of like a free jazz rock approach into the great climax at the end. So that rounded off the first set. A lot of old school in there, similar to the first couple of nights. Blazon snuck in there. You could tell though Trey was, picking up the energy from what he'd done the previous nights. I commented on Mike a little bit. I don't know if it was in the mix. Some of us were commenting in the section that we couldn't really hear him, or he was kind of in and out a lot. I don't know if that was his playing or the mix tonight, which I thought was strange. He was even delayed a little bit on like some backing melodies and stuff. He just seemed a little off beat the past couple of nights, but not a bad performance, just not something you'd expect from Mike, which he rebounded a few times in the second set. So overall, first set was awesome. I don't know if it was the best first set of the 3 nights, but it was certainly a great run. Set 2 could have gone so many ways. I thought they were going to come out a little bit more rambunctious. I thought maybe they'd open with Crosseyed and Painless, or like a Tweezer or something like that, but they actually came out with Ghost, which was really cool. Went into a jam on that a little bit, a pretty straightforward Ghost. They had a little bit of trouble coming together to end it, but they put the stake in the ground and cut it off, and then they went right into Ruby Waves. Now, over the years, Ruby Waves has kind of been this jam vehicle for them, and it's kind of evolved and taken some pretty sharp turns. There's some legendary versions. I know last year in Dayton, I think there was like a 35-minute version of it. It wasn't too long tonight. Not that any song's ever too long when you go see this band. You always want more, but this was definitely a jam vehicle for them. Really stretched it out a bit, maybe about 15 minutes. There were some grooves in there. I think there was some Birds of a Feather teases and Ruby Waves, or maybe that was the next tune, and Light, where they're dropping some Birds of a Feather tease. I have to go back and listen. That part of the set was kind of pretty intense. So I just mentioned they go into Light now. Really good upbeat tune. Jammed out a little bit. And in that, texting my friend Mike, who's across the arena, I said, I think we're getting a Cross-Eyed. It sounded like in the jam of Ruby Waves and into Light, there was some Cross-Eyed references, some riffs there. And I was like, I don't know, I feel like Cross-Eyed on the Painless is coming. Maybe it was wishful thinking. Turned to my buddy John on the right, and I said, Cross-Eyed. He's like, I don't know, man. I said, no, I think it's happening. So they go into this epic jam on Light. They're weaving in and out. And lo and behold, they drop the opening licks to Cross-Eyed and Painless, the Talking Heads cover. It's an ode to the Stop Making Sense version, but Phish has just completely taken possession of it in my mind. I know that sounds sacrilegious to say, but if you go back, if you're new to the band or curious on some of the covers they do, which we didn't get a lot this run, go back and just look up some live versions of this tune, and they just do something really special with it. And then the drummer's on vocals, John Fishman, which is great, and he's really energetic about it, and it's a really fun tune. They covered Remain in Light one Halloween, and this is one of the, I think, 1 or 2 songs that has really stayed with them, and this has been a staple. If you get a Cross-Eyed and Painless in the second set, especially in New York, I think you're really in for a treat. So that was fantastic. They moved into this really quiet, smooth version of Twist. There is a lot of crowd participation and hooting and hollering in the breaks. This is probably my favorite part of the show. And it probably seems strange for those who are at the show or know the band for me to for you to hear me say this, because it wasn't like a raucous version, but they got into this jazz thing in the jam where Trey was kind of in like his Grant Green mode a bit. Well, we had some technical difficulties there, so just picking up. Yeah, so in Twist there was a little bit of this jazz thing going on, really quiet, really funky, soulful. I referenced like a Grant Green style of playing. Um, it wasn't anything spectacular. It just really resonated with me. That portion of the tune, so that was really great. So Twist rounded up. It was getting, you could tell by the clock, it was getting towards the end, and they just busted into a great version of Cavern, which is typically a set closer here. Um, there's not much more I can say about it. It's just a straightforward rock and roll tune. Um, a lot of energy. And as Trey's saying goodnight, all of a sudden there's a little bit of an audible on stage, and they busted into a really raucous first tube, which is an instrumental, very upbeat, kind of a, I don't want to say a dance tune. I'm going to give the wrong impression of it, but it gets people going. It has a really cool groove to it. And because Trey doesn't have to sing, he started to dance and jump around stage. I'm sure there's going to be videos that are posted, which is going to be pretty cool to see. So, surprise kind of comeback after you thought Cavern was going to close it out. They wrap it up with First Tube. Then we get the Encore break, and it came out and did Drift While You're Sleeping. Admittedly, I got a jump start to the car with my friend John as Drift was playing. I did not think that was going to be the last song, but that's what they closed with. Caught the end of it on the Sirius XM, simulcast. So, look, all in all, another strong show. It's hard for me to say what my favorite night was. I'm leaning towards night two being the strongest, although there was really all-star moments at each. There's all these different eras and iterations and approaches that this band has taken. I feel like they're at this place where they really don't have anything left to prove live, but they're still pushing as far as they can and trying new things, and still seem to be enjoying playing together, which feeds directly and spills directly into the audience experience. And you've heard me reference over the past couple of nights, like audience participation. Like this is a give and take relationship. It's reliant on the audience bringing energy, and the band, holding that energy up, and that comes through in the shows. And that's typically why the Garden is such a special place. Every band kind of steps up their game at MSG, but this is like a second home for these guys. So with that said, man, I hope there's a summer tour. I hope I can catch a couple of shows. I'm looking forward to maybe a Trey solo project in the upcoming year. I don't know if they're thinking about doing an album. I'm not going to be at the Sphere. I know a lot of people I know are curious, interested in going. So, again, hopefully we get a little bit of a summer run. But if you're interested in music and you're interested in something different, I think you need to throw away all the things that you've heard about this band and go experience it. It's a bucket list item, in my opinion, for any music fan. And I don't think you'll be disappointed. At the very least, you'll find it interesting. I don't know if you'll become obsessed. I don't know if you'll go dive deep into the catalog. But there's nothing like these guys live. And I'm not sure there ever will be ever again. I think bands are going to try to do some of the things they've done. They're going to be influenced by them. But as I said at the start of the video, I love this band. I mean, they are my absolute favorite band. And you can see I listen to a lot of music. But these guys just are on a different level for me. They satisfy a lot of what I'm looking for musically, with such a dynamic catalog and a dynamic approach to the music. So thank you again, Phish fans and non-Phish fans alike. Thanks to the VC. If some of you were tuning in, looking forward to the new year. Everybody who's going to the show tomorrow, be safe. And if you're not, you could always stream the show if you wanted. And have a great new year. See you guys in 2026.